Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our session today entitled IB Life Hacks, Surviving and Thriving. My name is Brandon Mablios. I am Senior Director of Product Marketing here at Datasite. I am joined today with Craig Gridelli, who is Vice President at Cowen. First off, Craig, just wanted to thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
For sure. Cool. So to start off the discussion, first off, Craig, would you mind giving a bit of an introduction of yourself and maybe a quick background?
Happy to. As you mentioned, the name's Craig Gridelli. I'm a vice president at Cowen. I sit in the industrials group. Spend most of my time these days in sustainability in one form or another. I've spent a lot of time with electric vehicles and also a little bit with agriculture tech. Before Cowen, I worked at a couple other investment banks. Longer term, I did my MBA at University of Chicago, class of 2014. I did my undergrad at Johns Hopkins, class of 2006. And between those, I was in the Army for 4 years, and I worked for a couple of years at a hedge fund administrator.
Awesome. And it sounds like you've worked in kind of a couple cool subsectors. So what do you like most about your role and especially working with industrials clients?
I really like the banking group I'm in at Cowen. I think it's a great team and they're really good to work with, up and down the ranks, as it were. So, yeah, it's been an exciting space. We've pioneered some deals in using the SPAC product, which has been exciting. And we're getting a lot of opportunities, a lot of interesting clients and situations, really forward-looking stuff, which you don't always get. I think depending on what you have, what subsectors you happen to cover. Sometimes industrials, which is all good, but sometimes it's pretty mainstream, kind of old world stuff. But I think at Cowen Industrials, we tend to be looking at really forward. High future growth industrial areas. So that's been exciting.
Excellent. What would you say are some of the challenges of your role and how do you work through them?
Obviously, anytime you're working in a fast-paced, uncertain environment, there are challenges. We have all these transactions that we advise on are multi-party negotiations, and you have clients that want certain things and investors that want certain things, and you're worried about market reception of certain things. The bank obviously has its own, interest in relationships all across the map. So, you're really trying to execute a multi-party negotiation to find a transaction solution that maximizes value for everyone. And that's, it takes being thoughtful. You have to leverage the assets you have, both in your group and across the bank, the experience of the senior team, and you have to you have to exercise your interpersonal skills with clients and investors to make sure you're giving them good advice and really enlightening them to the pros and cons of any particular course of action.
Yeah, that's great. And one thing I think maybe in addition to that, in terms of a challenge, is obviously with any investment banking job, there's a lot of hours, could be a lot of stress. Now that you're a VP and you kind of worked your way up the ranks and kind of managed your work-life balance and kind of built a good cadence around it, what do you do in terms of being able to kind of manage that, the significant amount of time that's spent in the job, and how do you manage the stress? And especially for junior bankers where maybe they started this past fall and they're starting to really start to feel the time pressure and kind of the amount of stress that they go through in investment banking. What sort of advice do you have?
Yeah, great question. Of course, work-life balance, one of the most difficult things in banking. To me, I think the first step, frankly, starts before you even begin in a particular assignment. And I think it's important for people, if they want to be bankers long term, which not everybody does, but if that's what they want, and finding groups to work with that they're going to get along with just on a personal fit level. I think, the Army also, is long hours and you get shifted around a lot. And I think in my experience, even though the job itself may be very similar, your personal enjoyment of that job varies greatly dependent on who you're working with. If you're getting along with those people and you like being around them, it's much more tolerable than, if you can't stand those people and you just think that was a good group for whatever professional, development reason down the road. So my first advice would be, find a group that you actually get along with, and make sure that's a priority in your search and not, an afterthought. Beyond that, I think what a lot of junior bankers in particular struggle with, understandably, is being able to communicate what they're working on, how long it's going to take. And that has a lot of reasons. Partly that's because they actually don't know how long it's going to take. They've never done it before, or they haven't done it many times. Partly it's because they're not sure if they should know how to do something. They get asked to do something, and in their heads they're saying, "Oh, I have no idea how to do that. Should I know how to do that? I'm embarrassed to ask any questions," because maybe they think, this should be easy, and I have no idea what to do. And they'll sit there spinning their wheels for, a couple of hours, when if they just asked the associate or the VP or the MD or whoever, they might have get a 2-second answer that would have solved their problem. Or maybe the MD or whoever, me, the VP, someone would have said, "Oh, actually, that was a mistake, a typo in the email. I don't even need that." So, being able to be honest and communicate, I think, is a little scary, especially when you're saying, "I don't know what to do," or "I'm not sure how long this is going to take." And I think it's behooving on us, the mid-level and senior-level bankers, to make the junior team feel comfortable in asking those questions. But still, it's a hard thing. And I think being able to communicate in that way and have honest dialogues with your team, especially when you're new, can really help you manage that work-life balance. And it doesn't necessarily free up time, but I think it frees up a lot of stress. So it makes the time a little more manageable.
Yeah, and so you touched on having those communication skills both for the junior bankers as well as the senior bankers to kind of foster that sense of comfort, right? So in terms of skill development, obviously that's important, right? Being able to ask those questions and being open to learning. But what other advice do you have for those junior bankers that are kind of fresh in the space to continuously learn, to continuously develop their skills? Whether it's mentors, sponsors, outside reading, what sort of advice do you have? What has helped you?
There are kind of a lot of stereotype advice, like find a mentor. I think that's all good stuff. I think step one is try to focus on your own attitude. Try to have a good attitude coming into these things, because it is stressful, it is difficult, especially when you're new to it. That's not going to change. You're not going to become, you don't become a VP and all of a sudden it's not stressful. You're just stressed about different things now. But one thing you always can control is your own attitude. No matter how stressful something is or how difficult it is, you have 100% control of your attitude that you present out to the world. And if you could, try to maintain a good attitude and high spirits, even in stressful times, I think that people are really, other bankers, peers, seniors, whoever, are really willing to invest in you and develop you and help you find the ways to become successful. But when you start having a bad attitude, or you're pushing back, or you're not willing to be coached, then I think you start to see people have less interest in investing in developing you. So, be open to learn, be coachable for sure, find mentors. And I think all those things are facilitated with kind of step one, which is come in with a good attitude, and even when things are kind of sucky, try your best to keep that good attitude.
Excellent. And Craig, last question for you. I know obviously it's been a very strange year with COVID and work from home and this new remote virtual environment. In general, what sort of lessons are you taking away at a professional level from this year as it relates to kind of the pandemic and everything that kind of translates that into some of the challenges in the workplace, and how are you kind of taking those learnings and bringing them into, say, next year?
Yeah, look, that's a big question. It's on everyone's mind. I think we're learning still, and it'll probably be a long time before we've really been able to look back with some perspective and crystallize these lessons. But I mean, right now, the way it seems to me is we've learned on the one hand that it's actually not a huge efficiency loss to have people largely working from home. I think the expectation was, yeah, people can work from home, but it'll be much less efficient. I'm not sure that's really borne out. I actually think it may even have ended up being more efficient. I mean, there's certainly some things that are lost when everyone's working from home, but taking away the travel time and the hours are they've almost expanded because you're just always at your desk. So it's I feel like we're actually getting more work done even though people are home. So that's kind of been one, I would say, positive lesson. On the negative side, and this kind of touches on the previous question, I think the developing of the team and mentoring junior bankers has been a challenge. It's difficult to figure out how to teach them when you're not there. I think a lot of the learning comes on the job and kind of a collective fostering of information where people are just shooting questions back and forth and learning as they go. And I'm not sure that environment still exists in this work from home world. So we're still trying to find the ways to replace it, or at least do our best to replace it, whether that's more official mentor programming, or trying to create events, or doing more screen sharing to try to have these same type of conversations. But I don't think we're there yet. So on the positive side, I think work efficiency in terms of clients and their results, I think, has been better than expected. And I don't know if we'll ever go back to the old way, frankly. But teaching the juniors, mentoring, developing them, I think has been a struggle, and we're going to have to be innovative and figure out a way to get that done, as well as we used to, for this to really be a long-term change in the paradigm.
Excellent. Well, again, thanks, Craig, for joining us today, and thank you for everyone listening in. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.